welcome to my spoiler review of The Penguin. It feels good to not only be able to finally talk some DC with you, but some good DC. Matt Reeves continues. You know, he is doing a very realistic take on Batman, and I don't know how competitive. I don't know. I loved the movie, and I loved the show, but the box office was a little low for the movie, and the ratings are a little low for this show. But I'm having a good time. I mean, it was so much like those standalone villain comics that they do so often. And in that regard, as a comic book fan, I really enjoyed it. What did you think now that it's over? And I have to say, for once, and I really appreciated this, Hollywood did not turn a villain into an anti-hero. They let him be a villain. Oh boy, did they. And it ended up being quite the experience. So when I watched this show for the first time, I got to binge it. Would you have preferred binging it? Did you wait to binge it? As I said in my initial review, I think that's really the way to watch it. I think it's a little bit slow for a week to week. But anyway, when it was revealed that Oz killed his own brothers, I questioned what the show was doing. Because I'd come to really like Oz. I was rooting for him. I liked how scrappy he was, you know, and that he wasn't just doing a song and dance as he had himself described, but he was clawing his way to the top, inch by inch. But killing his own flesh and blood, how could I root for someone like that in any capacity? How could I spend a lot of time with them? Wasn't it just too awful? Like, we've had our villains over the years, particularly on, streaming and cable shows, but they've always had a code, always drawn a line somewhere, which I guess in some ways, when you see what this show does, is a little unrealistic, a little Hollywood. Because when Oz killed Victor, wow, because he didn't want the emotional liability, think about it. Oz even kept his own mother alive, barely. But Victor ended up meaning so much to him that he killed him with his bare hands. He had not killed anyone with his bare hands before, really, like that up close and personal. And what a brilliant bookend to the show, by the way. We start with Oz killing someone who disrespected him and thought nothing of him. And we end with Oz killing someone who idolized him, who loved him, and who he loved. As I sat in shock, I realized what the show was doing. I was like, oh, you're good, you, to borrow from another Mafia story. And I also recalled the fable of the scorpion and the frog, that even though the frog had helped the scorpion still killed the frog because it was in the scorpion's nature. And I think the Penguin teaches a valuable lesson. At an interesting time, by the way, that no matter what someone says to you, no matter what they promise you, no matter how sincere they might seem, no matter how sincere at the time they might be, remember their nature. The Penguin will do whatever he has to get to the top, and don't think for a minute that you will get any special treatment. He barreled right through Sophia several times. And the only reason that she's still alive by the time the show is over is that he needed a scapegoat. In fact, giving her a fate, though worse than death, putting her back in Arkham. Brilliant! It's a brilliant show! Except for one little thing, and that's that how on earth does Batman not show up? I saw at the end of episode 7, people were already making fun of that on Twitter, because it's so stupid. A new drug is introduced to Gotham. Sophia kills the entire Falcone family. Oz takes out the entire Maroni family. Plus, there is a huge explosion, which takes out a big chunk of Gotham. One of my favorite tweets was someone having Alfred say, Master Bruce, you must have heard that. And only at the very end does the bat signal finally go on. I mean, some have argued that Batman went on a bit of a road trip after the Batman. He needed a break. I never got that from the end of the movie. I thought that Selina Kyle left town, but I assumed that the path that Batman was on took him back to Gotham. A line of dialogue could have explained it, though, and then at the end of the movie, when the signal flips on, it's like, oh, Batman's back. And he's not happy. But even if Batman is not on the table, where the heck is Gordon or any good law enforcement individuals? They had some crooked individuals, but what about Gordon? Where would he be? There are plenty of characters also that could have been used if they couldn't get Batman. Like This show is so good when DC gave them so little. It's like DC wanted them to fail. They were like, no toys for you. Here's the Penguin. Ha ha, what are you going to do with him? And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe what you managed to do with the Penguin. It's amazing. But yeah, where's Bullock, Montoya, Flash? How about Barbara Gordon? What a great opportunity to have potentially introduced Barbara Gordon. I know that Gotham is lawless. It's the whole reason it needs a Batman, but it has not been abandoned. At times, in fact, the show felt very much like No Man's Land. But even in the comics, No Man's Land still had Batman and his allies. They did not abandon the city. As I said in my initial review, the Penguin is very light on Easter eggs, much to its detriment. But there are a few. For instance, within the world of the show, the files that Oz takes in episode 1, the true treasure left behind by Carmine Falcone, is the information that Oz uses throughout the season to fuel his rise to power. From the councilman to Johnny's affair. That is very nice, very slick writing. I was very, very impressed with that. I almost wish that the show had a callback to that, because it's so clever, I think it would be missed by many people. I'd be like, oh, you couldn't have gone back to being like, look, it's all that's all he needed. That's all he really needed, you know? And I loved that in the final episode, Selina Kyle finally reached out to her half-sister, Sofia Falcone. And sure enough, I really believe that Zoe Kravitz and Kristen Milioti would be an incredible duo. They look like they're half-siblings. I mean, I'm really impressed with that casting when you think of it in that regard. And it is a huge missed opportunity. This show has a couple of missed opportunities, which we'll discuss. But at this moment, I do think it's a huge missed opportunity that Selina never shows up during this show in person. I think that would have really greatly benefited the show. They couldn't even get Zoe Kravitz back as Selina Kyle? But to me, the best Easter egg of all was comics accurate, the Penguin being revealed at the end of the show. Smack that guy on the cover of a comic book. It was perfect. Finally, in the penthouse apartment that he'd always promised his mother, giving her the life that he'd always said he would, even though now she's a vegetable, but he still did it technically. And wow, Oz's lady friend, Eve Carlo, again, they never played up the Clayface potential, Basil Carlo being Clayface's name, but they had her dressed up to look just like his mother. Great casting there, and the way they dared to go there. Total Oedipal fantasy. Very DC, very HBO. And it's even snowing in this final scene. And of course, rumor has it it'll be snowing in the next Batman movie when Mr. Freeze enters the story. So also, why Lacron? I looked it up, and I think that what they're trying to signal here is that it's French, it seems, for thief or mighty counselor, which is, of course, a perfect way to describe Oz. Or as they've renamed him here, Oz Cobb. I don't mind that. I like that he's Oz Cobb. I like that he comes from the depths, the bowels of Gotham, whereas, Bruce Wayne comes from the ivory towers. In the comics, they've always said, they could have, they're peers to some degree. You don't need that. I like this version of the Penguin much better. Fascinatingly, up until now, the comics, the TV shows, the movies, they haven't really known what to do with Oswald Cobblepot. He looks funny, he walks funny, he was eventually given the Iceberg Lounge, which I thought was nice, but then they didn't know where to go from there. They even tried making him a lady, and that was interesting. I liked how vicious that version was, just like here. But it's been hard for the Penguin to compete with the rest of Batman's rogues gallery, until now. Oh my goodness, because this show kind of gave him a superpower. Not just survival, but incredible luck. I laughed out loud. I really did when Sal Maroni had a heart attack, just when he had Oz dead to rights. I couldn't believe it. Oz couldn't believe it either. And that Oz is also often surprised by his own luck makes him a very funny, charming, and entertaining character. And Colin Farrell plays it just right. He's like, what the heck? Wow. Like Oz doesn't usually have a plan, but he's got his eyes and his ears open, and he's ready to pounce on the smallest and most unexpected opportunities. He's always ready to go. That, and again, there's nothing he won't do. That's incredible. I really, really like it. I would say that moment with the Maroni heart attack, when Victor got all the underlings to turn on their boss and support him in Oz, and then also when Oz makes that deal with the councilman to pin everything on Sophia, sending her back to Arkham, and therefore putting him in the clear. Those are the moments that stand out the most to me when I think of this new version of the Penguin, because they're so clever and so grand that they almost seem unreal. You know, Oz wanted to be a legend, right? He wanted not only a man of the people, but a legend. And you're like, that's like an instant legend. I can't believe that just happened. Again, the Penguin has a superpower, and I hope that the character not only remains part of the Matt Reeves Batman stories, he better be in the Batman Part 2. He's right there, ready to go, leveled up and everything. But I hope that this change is reflected in the comics, animation, etc. They finally figured out what to do with Penguin. In many ways, Oz is who truly represents Gotham. I mean, I guess Bruce Wayne represents the elites of Gotham that's why I guess you know what? I never liked the Court of Owls storyline, but I'm kind of starting to see it as where Bruce Wayne kind of comes from. But in many ways, Oz is who truly represents Gotham, even more than the grander things that are happening with Batman and the other villains, again, up above. What's happening at the ground level? That's where Oz is. And that's beautiful. You know, his story of survival and just getting by and rolling with the punches. I mean, that's just amazing. That's what Gotham is. You know, all the crazy things that happen there, and yet the city still stands, like Oz himself. All right, let's talk about Victor. He's definitely Penguin's Robin. That was a very interesting idea. But instead of getting to someday become Nightwing, Penguin kills him. Because villains aren't the same as heroes. That's why they're villains. 3 of my favorite Victor moments were when he changes his mind and he goes back and he gets Oz. The way he just plows into that crime scene. That was amazing. Again, Oz can't believe his luck. That was amazing. And then when Oz says just drive and leave Sophia, it would take a second to pull her into the car. They just had a big conversation about loyalty. That was one of the first signs that Oz, you know, and I honestly believe Oz, well, he believes what he's saying in the moment, or he thinks he might, but it showed you again who Oz truly was. That was amazing. Also, when Victor realized he could bribe that police officer, what money? I was so proud of Victor. I was like, my baby boy's all grown up. He's all grown up. I loved it. And then, again, when he uses, as I said, when he uses Oz's own mantra to help, you know, the rise of the little guy to convince all those other underlings to join him. That was amazing. I thought the character evolution of Victor was phenomenal. They were evolving him incredibly well, which made it even more shocking that he was killed. I thought it might happen when he told Oz how much he loved him. I was like, oh, Victor, you were so close. I mean, was that, I still wasn't sure they were going to actually have him do it. But what did you think? What moment did you realize that Victor was done? You know, he was going to be taken out. It was horrible. I was gutted when it happened. It was very difficult to watch. And again, that's the point. And also, talking about bookending the show, first episode, Oz takes the license as they bond. And then in the end, episode 8, after he killed him, he throws the license away into the water. Wow. I mean, almost leaving Victor a nameless body, a nameless corpse, just letting him fade into Gotham. Probably never even maybe to be found. It was just brutal and extremely well done. Then, of course, Sophia. I was surprised because she isn't a traditional cheesecake character, how many male fans absolutely fell in love with her. More so than the Gotham version from a few years ago. You know, they've significantly changed the character from the comics. And, you know, I had wanted them to go back to the comic book version because I thought it was more unique and original. But, you just got to love the way a lot of fans reacted to this version. Seeing men on the internet exclaim, I can change her, something usually women say about bad boys, was just something I found very amusing. I'm a big Milioti fan, especially after that iconic Black Mirror episode. And I think at least in the beginning of this show, she did really fantastic, nuanced, original work. A little Lady Gaga-like from House of Gucci, but I really liked what she was doing. Despite her small stature, you definitely believe she could take on Oz. And I think her most valuable asset was her unpredictability, something that has helped many a Batman villain. But on that note, I did not like that she became less a member of the Gotham Mafia scene and more one of those fantastic Batman villains. It not only felt like a bit of a knockoff of the Gotham show from Fox, but it was a leap that just didn't feel right. It's not like she was inspired by what the Riddler had done and Batman and Catwoman's arrival on the scene. Maybe then it would have made a little more sense to me, but they didn't do that. You know, maybe if Selina had showed up and said, you know what you could do? You know what I found very helpful? Like, she didn't even do that. It just seemed to come out of nowhere. You know where it seemed to come out of? The writer's room. The writers saying, we need a bigger-than-life villain like Batman usually has. We need to turn Sophia up to an 11 because for some reason, DC won't give us any other characters to play with. So they had to kind of create their own. And therefore, it didn't feel organic to me. In the comics, the Falcone family manages to cross paths with that crazier world in Gotham that's emerging. You know, one of the family members goes to Arkham, but they still maintain their Mafia flavor. As Sophia's outfits became more outlandish and her behavior more and more bizarre, she felt more like Batman Rogues Gallery light than a formidable member of Gotham's Mafia scene. Maybe what Gotham's Mafia scene would become to hold their own. You know, maybe somewhere in between, and that is something I would have preferred. To me, Sophia was at her best in that conversation in episode 3 with Oz, after, you know, they started that drug deal. A mob boss tightening the noose around someone's neck just with their words and what she knew. And truly worthy of her father's legacy. I was surprised how much the Falcone family, by the way, would let her get away with. I know they were supposed to underestimate women, but, you know, they were getting very, very scared of her, and yet they allowed her to remain in the house. I thought that just didn't make any sense to me. I'm also not sure why they felt the need to make Carmine Falcone the hangman. Even John Turturro found that distasteful, which is why Mark Strong had to step in, although I felt very effectively. I liked Carmine putting his own daughter in Arkham, but there were so many reasons that he could do it, you know, just to quiet her up so she didn't tell on him. But with the hangman thing, it felt like, again, the only reason they included it was because they were desperate for an Easter egg, and they got this from The Long Halloween. Only in that comic, the hangman was a woman. So I didn't like, they were like, oh, yes, preying on women. I was like, no, the whole point is that it is a woman. And, you know, that, you know, it just really, I think, you know, gutted the original storyline. You know, it was, or at least partially a woman. You know, it was revealed to be Harvey Dent turned Two-Face and his wife Gilda, who's also very small, like Sophia has been made to be. So it's just a waste of a storyline and a twist from the comics. I was like, oh, you wasted it. You shouldn't have just, you didn't need to do that. Also, on that note, is Gotham's Mafia scene truly, totally wiped out? Is there no more Mafia? That would really be unfortunate, because speaking of The Long Halloween, I know it's been adapted into an animated series, etc., but you should really read the comic. I mean, an animated movie. Well, 2 movies. But you really got to read the comic. Nothing has come close to the comic. Even this show, for as good as this show is, in terms of the Penguin, it does not do the Mafia aspects of the Long Halloween story justice. So part of the commentary there was the Mafia having to deal with this new type of criminal that had emerged in Gotham because of the arrival of Batman, and how they would have to go up against it, coexist, you know, what was going on there. And this show, unfortunately, didn't get to do that. So I would hate to see the Mafia totally taken off the board in the world of Matt Reeves' The Batman, because that's a great thing to go over. All right, now outside of the bigger moves, the Penguin also had some nice smaller flourishes. The blood mushrooms, a real thing, by the way. Oh, those were great. Perfect for the source of a new drug in Gotham. And I liked Oz's purple car, the Penguin's favorite color, which, you know, got him into a lot of trouble, but he just liked it. I liked it. It was one of the few, splurges that he allowed himself. Until the end, obviously, where he went full Penguin, and it was glorious. Also, the flashback to how Victor's family was taken out by the Riddler's flash flood. That was very well done. A nice, precision use of VFX on the show, which clearly also doesn't have a huge budget, and a nice way to work the film back into the show. However, as I said, the show also had some major missed opportunities. What they did with Arkham was a mess. I appreciate very much they used the same sets from the movie. That was nice. But Magpie was the best guest star they could get. I'd be like, you gotta give me somebody else but Magpie. She's just a Harley Quinn ripoff. Sorry, Magpie fans, but it's true. And no Jeremiah Arkham. The actor they cast even looks like Jeremiah Arkham. I was like, how is that not Jeremiah Arkham? And I really did not like the whole storyline with Theo Rossi's Dr. Rush. I know he's done a good job on other shows, but he really stood out as a horrible actor in this context. I was like, oh, get him out of here. I didn't like that it was so similar to what happened with Dr. Harleen Quinzel and the Joker in the Mad Love storyline. And I couldn't figure out what his angle was. I was like, what are you up to, buddy? I get wanting to add some spicier scenes, to keep that HBO reputation. But they weren't even that spicy and sexy. They just didn't work. You were just like, what is happening here? I do not care for it. I also felt the Falcone house just looked all wrong. I liked that it was in New Jersey. They even drove over the George Washington Bridge to go to Fort Lee. I was like, I love it. Not only is the real mob in New Jersey, but it was a nice fun nod to The Sopranos, the original streaming show on HBO that, started this whole fad that we're into today. Or I guess you could also say Renaissance movement, etc. But The Sopranos is the one that started it all. It's the Snow White, thank you very much. But the Falcone house just looked too much like the sets from Gotham. I just didn't like it. It took me out of the show every time. I was like, can't we get a better house than this? I don't like it. And then finally, Oz's mom. Also, again, a little bit from The Sopranos, his relationship with his mother. But I wasn't sure what to make of her. That actress did a wonderful job. They seemed to say that she hated her son ever since that he had killed his brothers, and she knew about it. But she didn't go through with that deal, that amazing deal, to have him killed as a child when that gangster offered to take her son out for her. That was a big reveal because Oz idolized that guy. Wasn't that the guy he was talking about? I don't know. I think it was at the beginning of the show. And that gangster was going to kill him. That was amazing. But she called that off, and she encouraged him over all the years, right? She seemed very much in his corner. Was it because of her dementia, right? Had she gone also partially mad over what had happened? That would be interesting, right? Was it also because she promised him a better life and what was done, and she was still also her son? I liked some of the aspects of that big reveal, but I think it's almost like they needed one more episode to really, truly flesh it out. But yet at the same time, what happened with Oz's family was just so horrible. Maybe broad strokes are better because I think they kind of acknowledged that nobody, even Oz and his mother, didn't really want to go revisit what happened there. And so therefore neither did the audience. And they left the darkest corners of what happened to our imaginations. So, I guess to some degree it worked. But I just felt I never really got a good grasp of what exactly happened there. And I guess maybe to some degree, Oz and his own mother don't know exactly what happened. But yes, by the end of these 8 episodes, I saw the Penguin in all his glory. He not only leapt off the comic book page, but he was better than he has ever been. It was wonderful. It was so nice to see that kind of respect and stewardship of the IP. Come in and leave it better than you found it. Wouldn't it be wonderful if every creative who was hired to work on this IP felt the same way? In every aspect of the IP. And I've seen many people do damage to these iconic characters and stories. Not just movies, TV, comics, but this was incredible. And that's why I said I would love to see HBO-style origins for all of Batman's villains. I would love to see that, but unfortunately the views for the show, at least what we've been seeing so far, maybe the binge will save it, but it has not been phenomenal. Hopefully the show doesn't look expensive. Hopefully it's not. What did you think? What were your favorite characters and moments on the show? And what if anything could have maybe been approved upon? And do you think it was weird that not only Batman didn't show up, but absolutely none of his allies? And who would you have maybe liked to have seen? And would you like to see this type of show continue? Do you want a Penguin season 2? I don't really think there's anything else to explore. I'd like to see him bring him back for maybe some of the other villains, but I'd love, just like any DC fan knows, back in the day, they put out these titles every once in a while. They would do a series of origin or focus on the villains, and they would all get their own, it would be like a set almost, and it was so cool, and it was great. And I see that for HBO, if, hopefully, if the numbers make sense. Creatively, though, I think it does. Please give them a little bit more to play with. I'm tired of, the execs tying the creatives one hand behind their back. But, still, that's how good the creatives were here. They still managed to make something really incredible. All right, share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And, of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.